The expression, "Go west, young man, go west," couldn't be a better piece of advice if you're a lover of temperate climates, the freshest produce, and the most innovative cuisine. And the recipes I'm sharing today on Martha Bakes each feature a unique slant. Blum's coffee crunch cake with hokey pokey all over the top. The Gâteau Basque, filled with crème pâtissière and cherries. And individual pineapple upside-down cakes, pineapples on Hawaii, plus bar cookies with a healthy California twist, the date. Today on Martha Bakes. It's been said that the invention of Blum's coffee crunch cake was purely accidental when a candy maker at a well-known West Coast bakery called Blum's overcooked the honeycomb candy. The owner saved the day with a brilliant idea. The candy was then broken into pieces and used to cover a cake. Despite Blum's being closed since the 1970s, versions of this recipe live on, and I'm going to show you how to make it. In a large bowl, mix 2 1/4 cups of cake flour, 1 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, a tablespoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt. And now I've separated 6 eggs. We have 6 egg yolks, 3/4 cup of water, and a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil will be stirred right into the flour sugar mixture. And a 1/2 cup of unflavored vegetable oil. We generally use safflower oil here for baking. And this gets stirred all together. And the only thing you really need the mixer for is to beat the egg whites. Now also the zest of 1 lemon. Also some vanilla, 1 tablespoon of vanilla. By the way, I'm just going to start the egg whites. Beat them to a froth and then add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. 6 egg whites. So the egg whites have gotten frothy. Add your granulated sugar and beat until stiff, glossy peaks form. Add 1/2 of these gorgeous egg whites and use your whisk and then just whisk it into the egg yolk. It goes quickly this way. And get the rest of them in. Now have at the ready a 10-inch removable tube pan. It's basically known as an angel food cake pan made out of spun aluminum. The marks on the aluminum allow the cake to rise up the sides very nicely. So now pour your batter into this cake pan. It does not have to be buttered or greased. And use a little offset spatula just to smooth the top of the cake. And this goes right into your preheated 325-degree oven until a toothpick comes out clean. 1 hour. Now this is the coffee crunch that goes onto the frosted cake. 2 tablespoons of strong coffee, 2 tablespoons of light corn syrup, and 3/4 of a cup of sugar. This is very tasty when it gets on the cake. So cook this over medium heat until it reaches 300 degrees on a candy thermometer. Honeycomb is a delicious caramel candy, and it's also called hokey pokey, cinder toffee, or sponge candy. And we have reached the 300-degree level, and now 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking soda sprinkled over the top. Stir with a whisk and pour this right on a silicone baking sheet. Don't flatten it or do anything, just get it off the whisk. Let this cool for 30 minutes, and this blob is your crunch. And now for the frosting for the cake. It's basically a coffee whipped cream. So this is 1 1/2 cups of the best heavy cream you can find. And add 1/4 of a cup of strong brewed coffee. That leftover espresso from breakfast would be perfect. And 3 tablespoons of superfine sugar. I use superfine because it dissolves really quickly. You want the cream to be stiff, but not over beaten. While this is beating, you can break up your coffee crunch. And you want to break it into irregular pieces. You can use an ice pick for this. All this gets pushed right onto the whipped cream frosting. But we want this hokey pokey to cover the whole cake. So now, spread this all over the cake. And it's on its serving cake stand. But you see I have my pieces of parchment underneath the cake so that I am not going to make a mess of the cake stand. And now spread this top and sides. Doesn't have to be perfect layer, just really cover the cake. And now for the fun part, the crunch. Stick the crunch here and there all over the cake. Unusual, don't you think? Just keep piling it on. What a surprise birthday cake this would be. So there you have the Blum's Coffee Crunch Cake. Though it may look a little unconventional, this cake, I guarantee, tastes outrageously good. Enjoy. Basque settlers first arrived in Nevada during the gold rush of the mid-1800s. Originally from the Pyrenees region of France, they brought with them a treasured recipe from their homeland called Gâteau Basque. Traditionally, it's a tart filled with either pastry cream or black cherry jam, but I've decided to combine the best of both worlds and fill this one with pastry cream and brandy-soaked cherries. First, make your pastry cream. In a medium saucepan, a half a cup of sugar and a quarter cup of cornstarch. And a nice pinch of salt. Dusty, that's the cornstarch. And in 2 cups of whole milk, put 4 egg yolks. Pastry cream is basically a creamy, starch-thickened cooked custard, and it's used to fill cakes and tarts. It's usually made with milk, sugar, egg yolks, and a starch. And in this case, we're using cornstarch, but you could also use flour. And the starch raises the temperature at which the sauce thickens and buffers the egg yolks so that they don't scramble. Stir it around with your whisk, and you can add 2 tablespoons of butter. Now keep stirring it over medium heat. It will come to a boil, and it should boil for 1 minute just to cook all the ingredients. It's actually getting a little harder to whisk, and that means it really is thickening up beautifully. Remove from the heat and add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 1 tablespoon of brandy, cognac. I love the taste of cognac. And cognac or brandy is a spirit distilled from grape wine, and it's aged in oak casks, and it is a superb flavoring for lots of baked goods. So now strain this mixture so that we have absolutely no lumps in the pastry cream. And you have a lovely pastry cream for all those various uses, but right now we're going to use it in the Gâteau Basque. Cover with plastic wrap and put the plastic wrap right on the surface of the pastry cream. You don't want any skin forming. Let it cool and then refrigerate at least 2 hours or up to 2 days. So now take a round of pâte brisée, and we have a full recipe for this tart because we need a top crust and a bottom crust. It's a double crust tart. And roll this into about a 13-inch circle to fit into a 9-inch removable bottom tart pan. And this is our basic recipe for pâte brisée. And that looks just about the right size. And easy way to get it into the pan is roll it up like that and unroll it like that. And you put this with the edges of the pastry overhanging. Press the sides down with your thumbs. Put this right into the freezer for 15 minutes. So here we have a round of pastry for the top, the bottom crust. We have a half a cup of cherries have been soaked in 2 tablespoons of brandy and our pastry cream, which is thoroughly chilled. And first we have to cross-hatch the top. A pattern of crossed lines like this, which is very traditional for a Basque tart like this meant that the tart was filled with pastry cream. And if filled with black cherry jam, there's a Basque cross, a cross shaped like a rounded pinwheel baked flat on top. So I think we're going to sort of stick with the crosshatch for this one. It has more pastry cream than it has cherries, but it's such a nice combination. And I'm just using the edge of a sharp metal ruler to do this. You can use a knife if you want, but be very careful not to cut through the pastry. That makes such a beautiful design, don't you think? So first put in your pastry cream, and because it's so cold, soften it up a little bit with your spatula. Fluff it up. And this goes right in the bottom of the tart. Spread this evenly. And then your cherries, sprinkled all over, with a little bit of leftover brandy, of course. Now make an egg wash out of one whole egg, beaten with a fork. And brush the edge with the egg wash. This is our glue that will hold the top crust to the bottom crust. And now put your pastry round. Now press all the way around the edges. Use your thumbs to cut the excess off on the edge of the tart, right here, all the way around. Don't cut your thumb. This makes such a beautiful seal and such a beautiful edge for the tart. This pâte brisée, well, if you're like my mom, you'll roll that out and make it into little jelly tarts or something. Now brush the egg wash all over the top and make sure your oven is preheated to 375 degrees and bake for about 1 hour and 25 minutes. So once removed from the oven, let the tart cool for 20 minutes on a wire rack. Then remove the tart ring and let cool completely on the rack. It's not to be cut until it's completely cool. You're going to love this cake. It's scrumptious and delicious any time of year. The 1920s brought the widespread availability of canned pineapple to us from Hawaii, and many, many recipes followed. The most popular was pineapple upside down cake. To make this dessert extra special, I like to bake it in individual sized cakes. These ramekins are perfect for a single serving. So start the recipe in a saucepan, melt, and notice, look, this is my brown sugar, dark brown sugar. To keep it fresh and moist, I always put a slice of apple into the container in which it's stored. Once you open the box, it will dry out if you don't really put it into an airtight container. So here, half a cup of dark brown sugar, packed, 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and a pinch of salt. Turn this on, and we want to create a nice base for our ramekins, which will be the top of the upside down cake. So while that's melting, generously butter the whole inside of each ramekin. These ramekins are 10 ounces. Okay, they're all done. And now the pineapple itself. We want 1/4-inch slices for our pineapple upside down cake. I'm using a good, sturdy, serrated knife to slice my pineapple. And there, 6 slices. And the reason I didn't peel it is because we're going to take it off anyway with our cutter. We want to find a cutter exactly the size of the ramekin, and this one's perfect. So we take the cutter and cut the nicest round out of this pineapple. And here we have a lovely slice. Make sure your cutters are nice and sharp before you embark on this project. So now, we want to take the core out because that really is tough. Find another cookie cutter or biscuit cutter that's the right size for the core, and take that out. Now, doesn't that look a lot like canned pineapple? But the taste is a lot different. So that's our pineapple all done. And now each ramekin gets about a tablespoon or a little bit more of this dark, buttery, sugary mixture. But we want to use up all of this lovely syrup, so try to even out your portions. And now put 1 slice of pineapple in each. And see how they fit exactly. Lovely. And now for the cake. In the bowl of an electric mixer, cream 1 stick of butter, 1 cup of sugar, and cream this until it's nice and light and fluffy, and add the seeds from 1 vanilla bean. Just slice it right down the middle lengthwise and scrape out all the fragrant tiny seeds from inside the vanilla bean. Those are the vanilla bean seeds. Add 2 whole eggs, and in another bowl, mix up your dry ingredients. 1 3/4 cups cake flour, 1 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And cake flour is essential because it's a very finely milled flour from soft wheat, makes a very nice light cake. And we have 2/3 cup of whole milk. So we're gonna add the flour alternately with the milk. The flour, and this is just enough for all 6 pineapple upside down cakes. Okay, so dole out the batter using these nice ice cream scoops. 1 of the large ones. This is a 1/2 cup size ice cream scoop, and then a little small one for the remainder. This pretty much uses up the batter. And you can use an offset spatula. Just level out the tops. You don't really want a bumpy cake because this is the bottom, remember that. Now, get this into a 350-degree oven, preheated, and bake until golden and a cake tester comes out clean. That'll take about 30 to 35 minutes. So now we're making the last part of this dessert, a caramel rum sauce. 3/4 cup of sugar dissolved in 1/4 cup of hot water. You want it to caramelize a little bit. While that's starting to cook, we're going to unmold our beautiful ramekins. And you can run a knife around the edge. We've concocted some tongs that will lift very, very hot things by wrapping towels around the tips of the tongs. Put a plate over like that, invert. Best unmolded when they're still slightly warm. Aren't those the cutest little pineapple upside down cakes you ever did see? And we're waiting for our caramel syrup. Turn off the flame before you add 1 cup of heavy cream. Be very careful, it might try to erupt up over the top and you don't want that to happen. Just turn on the flame again to kind of medium-high and stir until it becomes very thick and very creamy. So now you need 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 2 tablespoons of a rich dark rum. Okay, we're keeping everything in the tropical vein here. And 1 tablespoon of cold butter, just to make the sauce even a little bit richer. So let that cool, and then pour it over your beautiful pineapple upside down cakelets right before you serve. Now you can embellish this even further with a big dollop of whipped cream, even a scoop of vanilla ice cream. But I think it's so good just as it is. Enjoy. Joining me today from our test kitchen is Samantha Senevaratna, who helped develop this delicious recipe using one of California's favorite desert fruits, the date. This is a date bar.
This is a date bar.
Okay.
That starts with a shortbread crust. So first thing, we're gonna put our dry ingredients in the mixer.
Okay. So a 1/2 cup of sugar, 1.5 cups of flour, and so this is just a press-in crust.
That's right. It's super simple.
Okay, there's your flour.
I'm gonna grab your salt.
Okay.
And then we have a stick of butter.
How easy, right in the food processor too.
Absolutely.
Sort of the cookie dough, right?
Yep, cookie base.
Does that go right in?
Well, you know what, we wanna process this.
Okay, first, yes.
how warm our butter is. Hopefully it stayed nice and cold.
Oh, it's, yeah, you want to cut it in and then add the egg?
And then we're going to add the egg and then press it into this bottom crust.
So I can just pour it down
Sure.
the tube. And that's the only moisture.
That's the only moisture for this one.
That looks good.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So I can press it in if you
Sure.
want to show the next
Get
step.
the filling happening?
Yes.
Okay. So while you do that, I'll make the filling. In this pot, I have 2 cups of dates that we've pitted and chopped. I'm going to add half a cup of apple cider, and then half a cup of sugar.
Excellent.
And then we'll just bring that up. Cook it for about 5 minutes until it becomes nice and jammy.
So this crust is so easy to press in. And just use the bottom of a...
The bottom of a measuring cup, or you
Yeah.
can use an offset spatula if
Yeah,
that's
this
easier.
Beautiful. So look, that's very easy. I find
beautiful.
the offset spatula works better.
Better than the cup, so do I.
Yeah, it does.
And then after this is spread, we're gonna freeze it for 10 minutes just to make sure all that butter is nice and cold again. And then it goes into a 375-degree oven for about 20-25 minutes to get it lightly browned.
And we have one already baked, right?
I have one done.
Okay.
So now my dates are nice and jammy. Let's take it off the heat and use this immersion blender to beat it right up.
I love this tool.
You don't have to transfer it into another bowl.
It has a blade inside if you don't have one, and it's wonderful for soups, wonderful for pureed vegetables, and wonderful for making pureed dates. So I think I could finish the lemon,
Oh,
right?
that'd be great.
Yeah. Lemon and dates go very well together.
You could just eat this. I would eat this on a piece of toast
It's
right
like jam.
now. So now, while you finish up the filling, I'm gonna make the crumb topping.
Okay, so the lemon zest goes in now.
Goes in now, right at the end. It's a teaspoon of lemon zest, but. So I put a 1/4 cup of light brown sugar in my bowl with 2/3 of a cup of rolled oats, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a little cinnamon in the topping. Mix that together, and then 4 tablespoons of room temperature butter. And mix it in. Sometimes I use my hands to go a little faster, but a fork works just as well.
So make sure your oven is preheated to 375 degrees. These bake for how long?
After the crust is already baked, it's another 20-25 minutes to get the topping nice and brown. And I needed to add a half a cup of flour into my topping.
Okay, good. And that's it?
That's it.
Oh, simple.
Yeah,
Do you want to spread it on top?
that's a nice even layer.
They look great.
Ready for the finished one?
There, you get that in the oven. So here we have the finished dessert.
So I'm gonna cut them into bars.
So beautiful. A nice after-school snack.
Oh, absolutely. They go well with a big cup of milk or tea.
Beautiful. And you can see how really beautiful they look inside. Lovely recipe, simple and actually healthy.
Yeah,
And
they are
delicious.
pretty healthy.
Yeah, oatmeal.
It's basically breakfast.
Yes. This could be used as a good breakfast bar. So if you've never baked with dates, I hope this recipe has inspired you as it's inspired me. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope all of you will join us for the next episode of Martha Bakes. Thanks for watching. Begin with a well-chilled cake that has been coated with a thin coat of icing. Use an offset spatula to spread the new coat of frosting over the crumb coat. For the sides, hold the spatula against the side of the cake while you rotate the turntable. For the smoothest surface, dip the spatula in hot water and wipe dry as you continue to skim off any excess frosting.